Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Beginning iOS Programming, where we're gonna make a game, a guessing game, and we're working on the fourth tutorial using Swift. And we're gonna go ahead and do a deep dive on Swift. Last time we discussed arrays and for loops, and today we're gonna go ahead and get into more heavier coding. Actually, we're gonna nothing to scare you away. It's just basically using enums. Last time we did the time before last time we discussed Swift enums. Actually, not enums, but the switch statement, which you're gonna actually use enums to do the switch. So you're gonna learn enums, and we're gonna learn about structs, and we're gonna also teach you about some basic classes. And that's gonna conclude this series, and it's gonna help you create the game. We're gonna start doing the user interface in the next tutorial, where we're gonna design that game in 3 screens, and it's gonna teach you a lot about iOS, and you're gonna be able to actually create your own app. And actually, right now you can actually start coding away, but not making an app, but you can actually learn and play around with playgrounds. So let's go ahead and open Playground again. If you don't have it open, so let me close this. So all you need to do is go ahead and go File, New, and click on Playground. And when you click on Playground and click on blank and choose iOS and click on Next, and just save it anywhere. Just name it Enum classes tutorial. I mean, you can create any, and you can just make sure it says don't add to any project or workspace, and just create, and you're gonna get to this screen. Okay, and then just go ahead and zoom that screen so we can have it all over. Okay, great. So it starts with import UI kit, and you have also the str, which is actually a variable that we talked. Remember, you talked about sticky notes, and that's what it is. And we're gonna go delete that. We're gonna create an enum. So what we're gonna do is actually enums are started with a keyword enum and the name of the enum. So we're gonna do days, and we're gonna do and each day it starts with a case. So case Monday, and I'm just gonna go ahead and copy paste. Remember, copy paste is really beneficial in programming. So I'm gonna just do 5 of them. I want to create an enum, so I'm just gonna go ahead and create a variable to hold the data that I want to test. So I want to test the weekday, so I'm gonna say I want to test Friday. Okay, and it'll say weekdays dot Friday. So now I have Friday stored in a variable. Remember sticky notes? I stored it into the sticky note, and I wrote it in the sticky note Friday. So now I want to go ahead and do a switch on the Friday, because what I'm doing is I want to see which day was selected, right? So I'm going to do a case, and we start with a case and I go dot. So I'm going to say Monday. I'm going to test go ahead, print something, but I have to have a colon after that. And I'm gonna go ahead and say print today is Monday, something like that, right? So you can just go and copy and paste that. Say Tuesday or Wednesday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, right? Okay, so we got that out of the way. So for default, we don't know today. We don't know the date. We don't know the date. Something like that. So if none of them are valid, it says default will never be executed because we already have all the cases filled. So we don't actually need the default. So we can skip the default because we already having everything executed. If we were to like just have this and the default, then default will be valid. So basically we have weekday Friday. So if I were to switch on this, and it's gonna say what? It should say Friday, right? So let's go ahead and run that. It says today is Friday. Okay, so if I would say, how about if I change this to weekday Tuesday? Can I do that? I cannot. Again, remember we talked about constants and variables. Since this is a constant, I cannot change it. So I need to make it a variable. So I made it a variable. Now I can change it. Now I know that it's gonna. So what do you think it will do? It will come here and save the Friday to this variable, right? And it would overwrite Friday with Tuesday. So it's gonna print Tuesday. Alright, so that's Enums. It does get more complicated with Enums. I don't want to get into more complicated, but one thing with Enums is you can also have a type that returns to it. So like if you were to type in, so in the example where we do go over this, and I'm gonna explain that then. So if you have a type, like let's say I have a string, and I want to be able to say Monday and Tuesday, right? And Wednesday. So I can just say when. It doesn't matter. I can just say third and Friday. So what I can do is I can concatenate that and say, okay, today is Monday, right? And give me the concatenation of Friday dot raw value. So what that does is it gets the raw value of this. So it gets this for Monday. So let's change it to mon. So it's gonna print mon, and I'm gonna change it to Monday. And if I go ahead and print it, today is Monday, mon. So it gets the raw. So what raw value is this guy here? So we're assigning a type to the return type for the weekday. Oh yeah, we do also need to talk about functions, which we'll talk about. So we do have one more tutorial left for functions. So basically the return type is, and now another thing I can do with Enums is basically I can actually make it a function, and it has a parameter. So I think we should start talking about function now. Yeah, because you're not gonna understand if I don't explain that to you. So we're gonna skip actually talking about classes and structs, and then we're gonna talk about function now. So functions is basically something that I want to do. If I say function say hello, all right, and I can just put it print say hello, and I can call this. So what happens is if I have this function, nothing's gonna happen if I run this, because the function is not being executed, it's just being declared. So it's being declared by the function keyword and the name of the function. You can have anything, any name you want, and it starts with a parenthesis open and close parentheses, and it opens with a curly bracket open, close bracket. The reason this is it creates in a scope. So basically in this scope right here, it's creating this. You can kind of think about it as a box, right? It's in a box, and if I have an outside box, and this is the outside box and this is the inside box, they don't talk to each other. There's no like communication with each other because it's in a different box. So since I can go ahead and do anything in this box, and it will do everything in that box, but I have to execute it by calling say hello. And if I call say hello, it will get say hello and say now. But if I go ahead and say print here, hello here, right, and I don't say that, it's just gonna print hello here. It's not gonna print, so because it's outside of that box. This is the inside box. This is the outside box. So they don't talk to each other. So they won't I won't be able to do both together. So this is like they call it a scope, and this is a global scope, and this is a local scope. So because it's localized inside the function, this is localized outside the function, and it's global, and everybody can see it. Because everybody can communicate with this code outside, but when it goes inside this curly bracket, it's in a local scope. So another thing with function is you can pass parameters, and parameters are basically whenever I call something, I want to be able to pass some data to it. So I say I want to pass in a name, right? And you put in the variable name. Again, variables are very important, and it's used all over the place. So you better have a good understanding of it. If you don't understand it, I'll link the Swift documentation. You can go ahead and read about it. But name parameters are very important, and I want to know the data. Remember we discussed data type. I want to say it's a string. So over here you have to declare the data types, and I want to pass in the name, and now I'm going to concatenate that name. So in order to concatenate that name, I'm going to go ahead and say name, and you have say hello name. Okay, say how are you, okay, and name. So then you concatenating again. Concatenating is putting that variable inside the string, and basically using that variable as a string. So this could be it could be an int. I can use it like that too. So I can also pass in the age, right? So that's another. So now I have another variable age, and so I can have many parameters. But it's better. A good coding skill is to have no more than 4. If you have more, then you have to think about your architecture and think about, hey, does this belong to a struct or a class? And we're going to talk about those later, struct and classes. So if you have a name and age, I can go ahead and say, how are you, name? And I say, you are this many, you are years old. Okay, so that one is gonna be age. And another thing that functions do is they return a type. So returning a type, it means that if I were to call this function and I pass the parameters, let's start passing the parameters first. So say hello, name is Bob, and age is 20. So it's gonna call this function, right? And it's gonna replace this name right here, and it's gonna replace this age right here. So it's gonna pass, I'm passing the data to this guy right here, and it's telling me, okay, it's a string type, and this is an int type, which is a whole number, and a string is series of characters, right? I'm passing it, and I'm saying, okay, print this, and concatenate it, concatenate the name and age, and call it. So what's gonna say is say hello Bob, right? It's gonna say how are you Bob, and say you are 20 years old, Bob. So I could say Bob. I could say I could put it in front of it too. And if I run this, it's gonna say hello Bob, how are you Bob? Bob, you are 20 years old. There you go. So another thing I can do now with function is I can do a return type, and when you do return, you push an arrow, and you want to tell it what type you want to return. Do you want to return a string? Do you want to return a character? Do you want to return an array? What type data? Remember we discussed int, double, boolean. You can return any data type that you want, but I want to return a string. And I want to say operation complete. I don't need to say print. I just have to so whenever you want to return something, you start with a keyword return and operation and anything that you're passing a string data type. So you need to pass in a string complete. Okay, so if I do that, what's gonna happen is I can go ahead and type in print here, because this is returning something. I can actually save this in a variable, say return statement. And Swift already knows the return statement is a string because I have specified it here. I don't have to specify it again here. Right? Remember we learned how to specify data types, but we don't have to specify that anymore. So what we need to do is just print that return statement. I'll show you another way you can print it too. So this is gonna return the operation complete in here, and it's gonna call this thing method, and it's gonna pass in Bob and 20 and save the return statement into this variable and print it. So what you're gonna see is how say hello Bob. How are you Bob? Bob, you're 20 years. Operation complete. So this statement says operation complete. I can also say, instead of saving in a variable, I can just take this whole thing and do it in here. There you go. Operation complete, and does the whole thing. So it's gonna call all this stuff, right? And it's gonna return and print it at the last thing. So that's how thing works. So I want to go ahead and the last thing I want to talk about is, since now we know functions, if you are confused with functions, I suggest you go again to developer.apple.com, go search functions, Swift functions, and I can actually link on the below, and just click on the link, you'll get to that. And it's always good to know something first, like the concept, and then kind of research it later and play around with it. Make sure you play around with it and get your hands dirty, because that's the only way to get better at coding. Alright, so if I go ahead and make this pass parameters, right? So now I want to pass a parameter and say Monday action of the Monday, right? What did you do on the Monday? Action, and now I want that to be in a string. And that's it. I just want Monday to have an action, and I want it to be a string. So now I don't need this anymore, and I don't need that, and I don't need this ones either, because you cannot mix both like that. So basically, so Monday action is string. So Monday, now I don't have the raw value anymore for. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say Friday dot. So now when I go ahead and switch on case, and I go type in dot Monday, now it's gonna give me the action, right? So the action is what? So what you need to do is say let action, and then go ahead and print this action here. Whatever is passed in that action. So we don't have Monday, we have, so what I want to do is pass it here, right? So I want to go ahead and say, okay, action, I did dishes or something like that on Monday, right? So Monday is gonna print today is Monday and I did dishes, but then because we set the variable to Monday for Friday, right? And maybe we shouldn't say Friday. We shouldn't say Friday for this. So go ahead and it's Friday for this. So basically we have this, I would say, like, basically go ahead and do weekday better. So go ahead and say weekday here. Okay, so basically now you're switching on weekday. Friday was really confusing. Weekday. So switch weekday, Monday, and it's gonna. So we're setting the weekday to Monday, and we're passing the action, right? So we're actually gonna use this in the game. That's why I wanted to explain it to you. So I'm gonna go ahead and run this and see what happens, right? So it says after the case, so we missed something. So we missed the colon after. So let's print it again. Okay, today is Monday and I I did dishes. So we did two, because we already had this. We don't need I did anymore. So I'll go like that and just run it again, and we're good. Okay, that's it. So that concludes this series for the deep dive Swift coding. One more tutorial I'm going to do on structs and classes, and that's it. And we're going to start on a user interface. I think for a challenge, the best thing to do right now is, again, write down some enum, use like southwest, east-west, east-west, you know, and then pass in like the parameters, play around with function, write some function down. You can actually write a program now and have each, like let's say you write a robot, right, and said the robot name is this, and one function says robot name, one function gets the enum with what south, west, east it would go, and it would call that, and then another function. Another thing you can do is you can call another function within another function. Like if I were to say function start robot, print start robot, right, I can call this function inside this function. You see that? Why? Because this name is in the global space. I'm declaring this name in the global space, see? But once I go inside here, I'm in a local space. So I cannot call, actually, let's see. Oh, let's say I cannot say hello here. I cannot call hello here. You know, actually I can, because it is still in a global. So let me see. Like if I were to declare something in here, I cannot call it here. See, I cannot call it here because it's declared inside here. So whatever is declared, this is declared outside of. It's in the global scope, right? This is declared inside the curly. Whatever is declaring inside, it belongs to that function. So it cannot be accessed outside. Since this is declared outside, this guy can talk to it, right? So that's what I was saying. So if you were to write a program, you can call another function from another function and return types, and you can do so many great things. I suggest you actually play around with the challenge, and also create an enum with southwest, east, and pass in like that, and then go ahead and switch on it, and I have fun with it. It's amazing to learn to program. So signing off. Go ahead and subscribe for more videos, and click on that bell to get, and turn on your notification to get updates on every video that I post, and I also update every week. So that's it. Signing off. Savvy programmer. Until next time.